Welcome into the PFF NFL Daily. It's not really an emergency daily, but we had to get this up quickly here, Sam. Matt Ryan has been benched as starting quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts. It is now Sam Ehlinger's time. So he's going to take over. Matt Ryan is banged up, but Frank Reich has reiterated it is a benching, essentially. Matt Ryan is being replaced, injury or not. It's Sam Ehlinger taking over, the former sixth-round pick out of Texas, a guy that had a really exciting preseason. But we got to recap. How did we get here? Matt Ryan making a ton of money, both from the Falcons and the Colts this offseason, but finds the bench after having one of the worst the worst start of his career, but he's ranking as one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL here through 7 weeks.
Yeah, Matt Ryan right now is a PFF grade of 57, a passing grade of 59. It's been pretty ugly. 9 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. That does ultimately kind of tell the story. You know, sometimes that touchdown to interception ratio can go wonky and it doesn't really provide an accurate reflection. It's pretty much dead on with Matt Ryan so far this year. It's been pretty rank, but that's a long way from saying it's all Matt Ryan's fault. Like, the Indianapolis Colts offensive line has absolutely fallen to ruin. It's one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. I think it was ranked dead last, or maybe 31st in the most recent PFF offensive line rankings, with injuries and factored in, all those kinds of things. So it's a terrible offensive line right now. You can see that by the kind of production or lack thereof that Jonathan Taylor has had behind it this season. It isn't just Matt Ryan, but I do think that it affects Matt Ryan more than it would a lot of other quarterbacks. He's reached that stage in his career where he desperately needs a good offensive line in front of him, and he just doesn't have that right now. So for the Colts, who are, listless right now through 7 weeks of the season, an owner that's getting a bit twitchy and unhappy, and particularly losing to a division rival, it makes sense that a move was going to happen. I'm not 100% convinced that Sam Ehlinger is going to provide the solution to the problem, but yeah, okay.
Ehlinger is intriguing. Well, let's get to him in a minute. But again, Matt Ryan, you mentioned him under pressure, 29.9 PFF grade. That's 4th worst in the NFL. The only guy's worse right now is a trio of second-year quarterbacks: Zach Wilson, a small sample size of Mac Jones, and Trevor Lawrence. So Matt Ryan not handling pressure well. And as you mentioned, it's never really been his forte, but it's really gotten worse and worse over these last couple of years, where he needs a pristine offensive line. It's interesting that Frank Reich made the comment. Essentially, they tried to sell Matt Ryan. I mean, they traded for him, but they're selling him on, hey, you're going to come here with a good offensive line, which it had been prior to last year.
Right.
A good offensive line and a good run game. And Frank Reich made the point, hey, we failed him on both accounts. The offensive line has not been good, in part due to injuries, in part due to performance, and they haven't had the running game. Jonathan Taylor injured, and for the same reason, when we talk about bad offensive lines, they do have different skill sets, right? Like the Titans have a team that doesn't pass protect well, but they run block really well. The Colts aren't doing anything well up front right now, and that's why their offense has been so bad. And again, it's a rough situation for Matt Ryan, but also at age 37, we're seeing the decline, right? The arm's not really there. The mobility's not really there. And this was like the old age where quarterbacks used to start tailing off just a little bit in their late 30s. Eli Manning and Matt Ryan. We saw Joe Montana back in the day. Just because Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers are doing it longer than most, I think we forget that. Matt Ryan, Phillip Rivers, they get old, and just things go south.
Yeah, I mean, this is important context for just how freaky Tom Brady in particular has been. This is when quarterbacks used to be done. As Joe Montana is a perfect example. Joe Montana at this age looked like an absolute physical wreck and a shell of himself, like just about capable of showing up for a couple of big games when everything was there. The Joe Cool magic showed up again, but he was toast. And this is when quarterbacks used to be game over. And we tend to think now that because Brady's still going, it's all about the modern advancements and recovery and medicine and avocados and water and whatever. But there's probably a large chunk of people that are still going to be done at this age. And Matt Ryan just might be the next version of that. Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger, Eli Manning, these guys all reached that kind of age and just hit that wall. I mean, even Peyton Manning, right? Same kind of thing. He lasted a little bit longer, but when he hit the wall, it was done. So that's kind of where Matt Ryan is right now. And maybe you can eke out a couple more years from these guys if you give them that perfect situation where they do have one of the league's best offensive lines in front of them, and they've got, elite playmakers to work with, and you don't need them to be the guy that elevates everyone around them. But the second anything starts to fall apart, I think that's the end. And at least Matt Ryan overtook Dan Marino on the all-time passing list. That's all that really matters.
Oh, man. All right, we'll get into more of Matt Ryan and how we got here for the Colts. But first, picture it, Sam. Your kicker's lining up for an onside kick. The chances of regaining possession are slim. The stakes are high. The tension's higher. Your pulse is racing. He kicks, and you watch as the ball lands. But you can make every play feel this exciting with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. And their unbeatable offers. Right now, new customers can make any $5 NFL bet and get $200 in free bets if your team wins. Check it out. In addition to the usual bets, everyone can boost their winnings with DraftKings stepped-up same-game parlays. And to make things even sweeter, you can throw down on those stepped-up same-game parlays once per game day all season long. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PFF to get $200 in free bets if your team wins. Just place a $5 bet on any football game only at DraftKings Sportsbook using the code PFF. So we got to back the truck up a little bit here. Since Andrew Luck's retirement, what's happened even before his retirement, right? We saw Jacoby Brissett as the starter in 2017, 2018. Andrew Luck comes back. He has a surprising retirement. The Colts have Jacoby Brissett again as the starter. So it goes Luck, Brissett, 2020. Hey, let's grab 1 year of Phillip Rivers. 2021, they trade for Carson Wentz. Then they trade Carson Wentz again this offseason, and they trade for Matt Ryan. I kind of joked a couple years ago. I said, look, the NFL is so average at quarterback. There's a lot of average quarterbacks that are good enough to win in the right situation. I said, what if a team just went different quarterback every single year? That could be a way to win. It's not. It has not been a way to win for the Colts. They tried that, and I guess it failed once again with another quarterback option every single year. It's just not happening here with Matt Ryan.
Yeah, but I think a big part of that is I think it can be a way to win as long as the rest of the team is in good shape. Like when the Colts had the best offensive line in the NFL or one of the top 3 offensive lines in the NFL, you could get a good season out of a guy like Phillip Rivers or probably Matt Ryan or Carson Wentz. But over the last few years, like it's ironic that Andrew Luck spent the majority of his career kind of being let down by the supporting cast. The offensive line generally in front of him was terrible. The supporting cast wasn't always the best. There was a lot of things around Andrew Luck that didn't function. And then he chose the surprising time to walk away when the Colts had just about assembled the best team around him that had ever been there. And he just went, no, I'm out. I can't do this anymore. I'm gone.
That's it.
So he walked away from what would have been the best offensive line, what would have been the best team that he'd been a part of. And that's what the next guy started to step into. But from that point on, it's kind of been this steady downhill erosion of the offensive line, and the receivers haven't necessarily been able to be replenished the whole way. So, Phillip Rivers was behind a very good offensive line, and he won 11 games, and you started to see the difference when Phillip Rivers got pressure versus when he didn't. And then you had Carson Wentz. The line's a little bit worse. Carson Wentz isn't quite bouncing back to himself, and it's just not as good. And then this year, the line has gone all the way to the other end of the scale. And it's one of the worst in the NFL. And Matt Ryan is just not capable of playing behind that kind of line right now.
Yeah, they've got the 6th worst pass blocking grade, 3rd worst run blocking grade as a team, including all blockers. So that poses the question, too. I mean, with Chris Ballard as general manager and Frank Reich, they haven't been able to figure out the quarterback situation. And we had talked for a while. It seemed like they had built a good roster. I don't know if that's really the case anymore because of what we've seen in the trenches, both sides of the ball. They haven't really had impact players the way they'd like. The defense has kind of been hit or miss. So, yeah, I think the entire roster kind of mid-tier at this point. And when you miss on the quarterback situation, that's not going to be able to elevate that mid-tier roster. So, Sam Ehlinger. What'd you say?
Mid, as the kids would say.
Mid. Oh, yeah. Look at you. Thanks for I'm a man. I'm 40. I don't know what they're saying these days. But what do we expect from Sam Ehlinger? His preseason stats were like off the charts. He's averaging over 10 yards per attempt. He's running the ball like crazy. Jim Irsay supposedly may have nudged them along here to this decision because he was probably excited by what happened in the preseason. And in his owner mind, he's probably like, hey, we have a bad offensive line. Don't worry. Sam Ehlinger is going to run around and protect himself. Like, what are we going to see from the former Texas standout here?
Ehlinger is one of those players I think that's very fun to watch play because it might not always be pretty. It might not always be good, but it finds a way often of functioning and, getting those kind of big plays when you need it. The problem is that's a much easier trick to pull off in college consistently than it is at the NFL. And the players that are like that, those kind of, team spirit, gritty guys that just find a way type guys. It's the Tim Tebows of the world, right? Like it works in college. It doesn't tend to work out that well at the NFL level if you don't have anything more to bring. So I'm going to be fascinated to watch. I like that type of player. I would like it to work out, but generally it speaks to a player that's like missing a few strings from their bow in terms of being a legitimate NFL quarterback. It's like Taysom Hill. That's the same idea, right? Like it can function, but it just doesn't quite come together and work as a true NFL quarterback. And, you end up cutting bait down the line and going in a different direction. So I'm intrigued. I'm here to see it, but I wouldn't be placing a lot of money on him working out as a long-term solution.
I'm also intrigued. He definitely has everything that you described. He beat out Shane Buechele at Texas, who was a bigger recruit than Ehlinger. Ehlinger is one of those guys where he just wins, right? Hashtag he just wins. And we'll see how much that could translate. Hey, look, we just talked about Daniel Jones, what he adds on the ground. Maybe Ehlinger can add that element to the ground game for the Colts. So Matt Ryan benched, Sam Ehlinger taken over. It's the PFF NFL Daily.